What's going on, guys? Steve back with another video. We are back. It's been a long break, but we're kicking it off this season with the month of mocks through the end of July. We're going to be posting multiple mock drafts every single week to help you gauge the ADP, the risers, the fallers throughout the offseason, training camp news, injury updates, anything that has to do with fantasy football and the updating, ever-changing ADP. We got you covered here with these mock drafts. We're going to be doing tons of different formats, different size leagues, 10-team leagues, 12-team leagues, maybe some 14-team leagues, PPR, non-PPR, half PPR, different roster construction, different roster setups, 1 QB, 2 QB, Superflex, all of that. You guys can comment down below, and we will try to get to those types of drafts, those draft positions. If you want to see the 8th pick overall, we'll hit you with that. The 1st pick overall, we'll hit you with that. Go ahead and drop a comment down below with what your preference is and what you want us to do in the next mock draft video, and we'll try to get to it. Also, comment below on what you think of the draft that we constructed today. This will be our first one of the month of mocks, so let's go ahead and get started. Looking at the settings, we see we're going to do a PPR league, obviously a snake draft. We're going to randomize the order, see what our first one is going to be. The first one we'll do is going to be from the 10th position. Today we're going to do 1 quarterback, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 1 tight end, 1 receiving flex, which is kind of like having a 3rd wide receiver, but if you want to go heavy, the top tight ends, you can get a couple of those and start them. But it's just so you can't start 3 running backs. You could, except for your flex. You could start a flex. We're still going to have a regular flex as well. We're not going to do a kicker. We'll do a defense and 6 bench spots. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started for our first mock draft of the month of mocks. Go ahead and subscribe below if you're a new subscriber. We're going to have new videos all month long and up and through the season of 2022. Man, I'm excited for fantasy football. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's look at the draft board, see what happened. Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler, Derrick Henry, Jamar Chase, Christian McCaffrey, Cooper Kupp, Najee Harris, Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson. Okay, so normally I'm kind of a running back heavy kind of person. Let's hide these drafted players. But this year, it seems like it's more acceptable to go some of these high-end wide receivers like a Justin Jefferson, a Cooper Kupp, a Jamar Chase. Those are really your top-tier receivers you're thinking about drafting in the first round. And out of those available, it doesn't look like any of those guys are available. Top wide receivers, Devontae Adams. I do like Devontae Adams, longtime Packers fan. Going to play with Derek Carr, his college quarterback. I'm excited to see what he can do there, but I can't pass up on Joe Mixon and any piece of this Bengals offense, especially a guy who's valued here in the first round. Joe Mixon was great last year. We could see if he could stay healthy all season long, he's a top-tier guy. He can easily finish as a top 5 running back. So getting him here at the 10th pick in the first round, I'm going to slam dunk that and say that's money. So let's go ahead and move on, see what happens. It looks like DeAndre Swift goes after the board right after us. Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara at 202. It looks like he will be serving a suspension, so the ADP isn't quite updated here on Fantasy Pros yet for that. I do suspect him to drop a couple rounds, maybe into the 3rd round, missing that many games. I don't know if they said exactly how many it's going to be, but any games missed definitely drops your value in fantasy. So let's go ahead and look at the next best player available. CeeDee Lamb is a guy I'm looking at right here. With Amari Cooper gone and the Cowboys offense is still going to be very good. Dak Prescott is still in the prime of his career, and CeeDee Lamb is seemingly the number 1 option there. He was good last year, but can he be great? I think so. So CeeDee Lamb would be our top pick here. Next people we would consider is probably some running backs. Leonard Fournette, maybe Aaron Jones, Nick Chubb. That's pretty much it. And we're not going to go quarterback. We're going to wait on quarterback unless a value presents itself. I don't want to get a quarterback at value. I'd like to get a value on him, and that means at least 2 rounds. So in your home league drafts, that's probably not going to happen. You might see some people take Josh Allen here, some Justin Herberts, but we will not be that, and we're not going to go tight end here in the 2nd round. So let's go ahead and take CeeDee Lamb as our 2nd pick. So we start the draft off with CeeDee Lamb and with Joe Mixon. So I like that foundation. So we got a decent amount of picks going off the board. Looks like 2 tight ends go off the board. Josh Allen does go in the 2nd round. I think that's going to be pretty common this year. Aaron Jones, Nick Chubb, Javonte Williams, Zeke, Akers, Barkley, Montgomery, Fournette. Those are all the running backs. Evans, Samuel, Hill, A.J. Brown, Keenan Allen, T. Higgins, Deontay Johnson are the wide receivers that go off the board. So we're not going to fix ourselves to go into any specific position. We don't want to corner ourselves, later on in the draft when a value presents itself, and we already have 5 running backs, and there's a good value on the board at running back. So we're going to continue to go best player available here and just see how our team shapes out. The best players available right now, I'm looking at James Conner at running back. I like DJ Moore, Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman right here in round 3 seems a little early. I know people are high on him. He was pretty good last year. He had a good stretch, but who knows what's going to happen with Matt Ryan. I think he'll be good this year, but I kind of value him more as like a 5th-round pick, so I'm not going to go for him right now. I think James Conner is really the guy standing out right now. He was really good last year. The Arizona Cardinals brought in Darrell Williams from the Chiefs. I don't think he's much of a guy that's going to take too much. They still have Eno Benjamin. But James Conner was too good last year for them to not use him exactly the same way they did last year. He was their goal line guy. He caught passes out of the backfield. Kyler Murray and him seemed to work well together back there. So I'm going to go James Conner here, and I really like to start at our running back position on this team. So we got James Conner, we got CeeDee Lamb, and we got Joe Mixon. So let's go ahead and look what came off the board. Michael Pittman does go off the board. Kyle Pitts, the 3rd tight end. Jalen Waddle and Brandon Cooks. Wow, Brandon Cooks is an early 4th-round pick. And hey, he's definitely shown it, every year. He's been really good. He always gets underdrafted, but I don't know if that's a little too high in Houston. I mean, Davis Mills definitely showed some promise last year at the end of the season that he can do the job, and Brandon Cooks seems to be quarterback proof. So maybe in the 4th round, that's not a bad value, but I don't see him finishing much higher than whatever wide receiver, he's been drafted right here. I think 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I'd say wide receiver 15 is probably his ceiling. But hey, Brandon Cooks, shut me up. All right, let's go ahead and look at the cheat sheet, see what we got. We have 2 running backs and a wide receiver right now. So I'd like to go look at wide receiver unless there's a good value at running back still on the board. I do like Travis Etienne. Antonio Gibson, I'm not really into that offense in Washington. Breece Hall certainly could be good. They do have Michael Carter there, who showed some promise last year. I do like some of the other guys a little down below that, though. Josh Jacobs, interesting. J.K. Dobbins, I'm a fan of. I'm a big fan of Elijah Mitchell, so that's a guy that we will be targeting, and I don't think he'll go off the board here between our next pick. We do have a long stretch between our next pick, so there is a pretty good chance that Elijah Mitchell will go. But there's also other guys like CEH, Miles Sanders that are there, and we already have 2 good running backs. So I think we need to continue to go after the wide receiver position. I mean, we could look at tight end. George Kittle's there, Darren Waller. Those are still good options. And here in the 4th round, George Kittle's not bad. Darren Waller, I'd like to get at least another round later. But I do have some sleeper tight ends. Maybe not sleepers. That's kind of a term that's not really a thing anymore in the fantasy football industry. But some guys that are going later in drafts at a good value that finished very well last year. Guys like Dalton Schultz, Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz, those are really good values, and I think I can get those guys later. Quarterback, Justin Herbert's still on the board. This would be a pretty good value on Justin Herbert. I have Justin Herbert as a early 4th-round pick, so that's kind of where we're at. So it's kind of right at value. Like I said, I'd like to get 2 rounds of value, so I really won't be owning much of these high-end quarterbacks this year. So we're going to go ahead and take probably DJ Moore. He's kind of seemed to be quarterback proof, even with a plethora of quarterbacks last year. He still had a pretty good season, started off pretty hot with Sam Darnold. We don't know exactly what's going to do if Baker Mayfield ends up going there. I think it's more of a lateral move at quarterback for him. I think he can still get it done. He's clearly the most talented wide receiver on that team. There's talks of Robbie Anderson retiring. So if that ever happened, this offseason, that would just be more targets for him. So let's go ahead and take DJ Moore here as our wide receiver 2. And we're pretty balanced right now. Joe Mixon, James Conner, CeeDee Lamb, DJ Moore. So Mike Williams is a guy that I definitely would like to get. Just a few weeks ago, he was going down like the 7th round. So he's definitely moved up in ADP. People are starting to realize that was a big value. So Mike Williams going in the 5th round. Michael Thomas goes in the 5th round. That's entirely too early to me. Just too many question marks related to whether he's going to play or not, whether he wants to be on the team. There's just a lot. Some other guys I see that are going too early. Chris Godwin, DeAndre Hopkins, he's going to miss 6 games. I mean, he's an 8th round pick to me. I don't see any reason why he should be going that early. It does look like Justin Herbert slipped all the way down the draft. So in this scenario, we're getting pretty much a full round of value on him. I did say 2 rounds of value, but by the time he gets back to us, he might be gone. So I think I might go ahead and go Justin Herbert here. Like I said, throughout these mocks, we'll try different strategies. So this will be kind of a quarterback early one. And I don't think it's too early because it is the 5th round, the end of the 5th round. So we're looking at the 6th round getting Justin Herbert. If that happened, that would be just an absolute slam dunk. But getting Justin Herbert right now would be a great value. There are some guys I definitely really like Jalen Hurts. Lamar Jackson's still going to be great. Joe Burrow. Matt Stafford. I mean, there's a lot of guys down there that I could have on my team that would be fine. But just knowing that I do like my running back so far and my wide receivers, if I was going to go a position player right now, it would probably be Elijah Mitchell or J.K. Dobbins. I do like Allen Robinson as well. But let's go ahead and go Justin Herbert. Let's give it a try. I'm not a quarterback early drafter, guys. I obviously said that throughout the video, but in the 5th round, at the end of the 5th round, it seems like a pretty good value. So let's go ahead and take Justin Herbert. Allen Robinson, J.K. Dobbins go off the board. Renfro, Juju Smith-Schuster. But hey, Elijah Mitchell's still here, and that's the guy I've been wanting. So to put him in my flex spot, I'm gonna take him all day right there. He was really good last year, guys. When he was on the field, and I know he had some injury issues, but as long as he's on the field, he will be the running back one. We saw in games where he wasn't on the field, they were kind of mixing it up between Deebo Samuel, Jeff Wilson, whoever else was there. But right when Elijah Mitchell became healthy, he was back to getting 20-plus carries. And there's not that many running backs in the league that are getting that many carries. With the 49ers offense, they're going to be run first. So if Elijah Mitchell's in there, he's going to get tons of carries, tons of volume. In year 2, last year he was a rookie. So this year, he knows the game better, knows the offense better. I don't see why he can't be even a little bit better as long as the health is on his side. So I think Elijah Mitchell might be a pretty good steal. Getting him in the 6th round, I really like that. But there was a lot of players who went off the board. We see Breece Hall go after us. He was the only running back taken the rest of the 6th round, and then through the 7th round so far. A lot of those tight ends we talked about went off the board. I do like Dalton Schultz. I like Zach Ertz. Those guys went off the board. Darren Waller in the 6th round seems like a good value. A lot of wide receivers. So seeing that Elijah Moore, Thielen, Robert Woods, Julio Jones got picked. He's a free agent right now. I think that's entirely too early for him. And then some other wide receivers went off the board. I definitely would have liked to get one of those guys as my 3rd wide receiver, seeing that we do have a receiving flex as well. So kind of, kicking myself for that. But we did go quarterback early. We got to test things and see what happens. That's the point of doing these mock drafts. We're going to do them all month long, and we're going to see what's our favorite strategy. We shouldn't be locked into any strategy, but we can kind of see what's shaping out as we get closer to draft season. What's going to be the best ideal situation when it comes to draft day? What would be the ideal situation for you to be in, and what do you think? What value can you get on certain players that you're going to be eyeing in your draft? So we're going to be looking tight end. I do like Dallas Goedert. If we don't take Dallas Goedert here, there's going to be a pretty big drop-off. Dawson Knox is still there. He'd probably be the other one I'm looking at. Albert O would be a later round guy with Russell Wilson in town and Noah Fant gone. That would be a pretty good guy to target. So if I don't take Dallas Goedert here, we're probably kicking the position unless we get a good value on Dawson Knox. We do need a wide receiver. So let's look at the receivers. I'm not a huge fan of Brandon Ayuk. Christian Kirk in Jacksonville. I know people are knocking him for his contract in Jacksonville. The guy got paid. Can't complain. That's his money. That's his deal, his agent. But he's going to be the wide receiver 1 there. And with Trevor Lawrence in year 2, he wasn't great year 1, but he can only go up from here. He's such a good talent. So Christian Kirk could be a good pick here. Russell Gage. Hey, Chris Godwin's not going to play definitely a few games, maybe 5, maybe 6 games with that ACL injury at the end of the year. So Russell Gage is going to be there. Antonio Brown's gone. Tom Brady needs someone to throw to. He likes a downfield target. He has him and Mike Evans running the show. Gronk's gone. That could be a very good pick, but it might not last all season long. But even with all these other guys, you're kind of looking at the same thing. Christian Kirk is probably the only guy that has like all season longevity. Like he could be really good all season long. So it's between him and Russell Gage and Christian Kirk, and I'm going to go Christian Kirk just because he's the wide receiver 1 on his team, just got paid. He's going to want to ball out and show that, hey, I'm worth this money. With Trevor Lawrence, me and him we can make a splash. So let's go ahead and go with Christian Kirk. as our third wide receiver. I don't mind it. I like our starting starting lineup so far. A lot of good players on pretty good teams. I would say DJ Moore and Christian Kirk are on the worst teams on here, on Carolina and Jacksonville. But hey, you got to there's good fantasy players on bad teams. I like to go for teams that are mostly good fantasy offenses, and I do have that. Chargers, Bengals, Cardinals, Cowboys, 49ers. I got a lot of players on those kinds of teams, so I feel pretty good about that. Looking at the draft board, the people that went off the board were Russell Wilson, Miles Sanders, Cordell Patterson, and A.J. Dillon. Cordell Patterson, 8th round, I think that's a good value. I think he's still going to be good this year. They did bring in Tyler Algier, but Cordell Patterson, he's an offensive weapon. He could play wide receiver. I think they would like to get him in the wide receiver position a little more, and then bring him in on those goal line opportunities. I mean, he's going to be good again this year, I think. So in the 8th round, I think that's a pretty good value. Looking at the top available running backs, we got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Kareem Hunt, Damian Harris. I feel like Damian Harris is being slept on. I know Ramondre Stevenson was good last year, but they kind of had a good 1-2 tandem, and Damian Harris was the guy that was really popping off some of those weeks. He's the guy that's going to get 3 touchdowns in those games where a running back hits 3 touchdowns. Stevenson's great. He might have one sprinkled in there, but there are those games with Mac Jones more of as a signal caller. They're running the ball a lot. So, Damian Harris is going to be good this year. Tony Pollard's going to be, he should be good. Him and Zeke should be more of a 1-2 tandem once again this year. Looking back at the wide receivers, Russell Gage is still there. And I do think because we kind of waited on getting that third wide receiver that we should probably go back to the wide receiver slot. And just to get a good start in the season, we can always find a guy on the waiver wire, as we get further. But we want to kind of attack that beginning of the season, get onto a good start. So I think Russell Gage would probably be, we talked about him already, would probably be our choice here. Dallas Goedert's still available, but like I mentioned, there are some other tight ends. I don't want to continue to avoid the wide receiver position. So let's go ahead and take Russell Gage here, thinking that he's going to start off hot. And honestly, if he starts out hot with Brady, even if Godwin comes back, we've seen Brady support Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin all in that offense. And with Gronk gone, I don't see why, if they didn't get off to a hot start, that Gage can't continue to be good for the rest of the season and play the Antonio Brown role. So we got Russell Gage as our 4th wide receiver. We still need a tight end, and we still need to fill out that bench as far as the positional players go. Dallas Goedert's still on the board. I think maybe at this point we should probably draft him. We do like these other players. We're going to get a quick pick here. Looking at the draft board, we're going to get a quick turnaround pick. But who's going to go off the board that we really can't live without? We can live without Dallas Goedert. We've continued to say that. We like other guys down here. We like Dawson Knox. We like Albert O. Alan Lazard is a guy I'm looking at, obviously being a Packers fan. I know what he's capable of. He hasn't been great at this point in his career, but he's been a guy that Aaron Rodgers can depend on. And we know that Aaron Rodgers, even though he got a rookie in Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs, and he has his boy Randall Cobb, he trusts his guys, his veterans. And at this point, Alan Lazard is like a team veteran, so he's going to see tons of targets this year. Even if the Packers brought in like Julio Jones, I really think Alan Lazard would still be the top target there. Him and Aaron Jones actually at running back. But I like Alan Lazard here. Looking at running backs, I think a lot of these guys are kind of similar. Melvin Gordon is back on the Broncos, and he's going to probably be pretty good again. I know Javonte Williams is there. He'll probably lead the show, and Melvin Gordon will probably be like the secondary guy, but it won't be too big of a difference in the splits. But we like Stevenson, as we talked about. I like McKissick. I like some of these other guys a little further down, and we already have 3 running backs. So it's going to be between Dallas Goedert and probably Lazard. And I think I'm probably going to go with Lazard. I still feel like we need to shore up this wide receiver room. Our flex is Christian Kirk, and we have Russell Gage. But after that, it's kind of a fall off. After Lazard, Jacoby Myers, Kenny Golladay, is he going to be good on the Giants? We don't know. There's a couple guys on here we could take a shot on. But after we take Lazard, we'll probably go with our tight end and then wait and just kind of see what the draft board shows. So let's go ahead and take Alan Lazard here. Dallas Goedert's still on the board. So let's see what came off the board. It was Sky Moore, Buffalo Bills, James Robinson, Tim Patrick. So I think we made a good pick with Alan Lazard. I'm pretty sure he would have gone there, but it doesn't really look like anyone took out of this tier 6 that Fantasy Pros provides. That they didn't take any of those. We took Alan Lazard. He was in tier 6. But let's go ahead and stop avoiding it. Let's just take Dallas Goedert here. I think that's going to be good. Jalen Hurts is he's the quarterback again. He's the starter. So him and Dallas Goedert had a good connection last year. Zach Ertz is gone. He was gone for half the season last year, and we saw Dallas Goedert have some pretty big games. I think he had a game with 200 yards receiving. So he has that ceiling. So Dallas Goedert is going to be like another pass catcher, a good PPR guy. This is a PPR league, so I think Dallas Goedert is going to be one of Jalen Hurts' top options. Even though they brought in A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert's going to take everything from underneath. He's going to be good. So I like Dallas Goedert a lot. And just looking at my bye weeks, just a quick pause here. We don't really have too many conflicts at bye weeks, so that's nice to see. It doesn't always work out that way. You shouldn't really draft thinking about bye weeks. You should draft the best team. And if you have a tough bye week where you have a lot of players on bye, you just got to make it through that week, hit the waiver wire, try to put out a fieldable roster. And if you win that game, great. If not, hey, you probably won a bunch of other games because your roster was really good. So off the board in round 10 and 11, we saw Melvin Gordon. We saw a lot of running backs. Melvin Gordon, Ramondre Stevenson, James Cook, Isaiah Spiller, Naeem Hines. Then a lot of wide receivers. So I think we made a good choice going with Allen Lazard there and then Goddard. I know no one went with tight end. I know you can always look at Fantasy Pros, like the bots that are drafting and see who has a tight end, but I don't put it past these bots to draft 2 tight ends and 2 running backs like way too early. That happened. So I think in your home league, that would have been a good choice because team 7 and team 1 and 2 didn't have a tight end yet. So Dallas Goedert was a good choice. Let's go ahead and back and see what we need. We really don't need anything. We should probably look at running back here and see what's available because we could use some more depth at running back. We have Joe Mixon, James Conner, and Elijah Mitchell right now. I'm looking at J.D. McKissic. He basically signed with Buffalo, had pen on paper, and then got another offer from Washington and went back to play with them. So he clearly likes to play for Washington. He probably got offered more money. I don't know the details on that, but he could have been on Buffalo on a winning team, a team that's been one game away from the Super Bowl, but he's going back to Washington to probably not be a very good team, to be a playoff fringe team. So he definitely likes it there. He likes his role there. I know Ron Rivera's probably, backing him, saying, hey, you have a defined role on this team. You are our pass-catching running back who we can rely on in the receiving game. And, with Carson Wentz being there, he's going to find him a lot underneath. Who knows what's going to happen with Terry McLaurin? But I really think he's got a defined role there. So I don't think his targets are ever in question. So we're going to take J.D. McKissic here. And I think I have no doubts about that pick. Pretty high on J.D. McKissic there this year. He's the guy I want to get as my 5th running back. He's our 4th on our team. In a PPR league, I think that's a great pick. So we didn't have many picks go off the board. Right behind us, Jahan Dotson. A lot of talks about him in training camp. That's a good pick. Matthew Stafford, which is a really good value for Team 12 in the 11th round. Raheem Mostert from Miami. Who knows what's going to go on there? We know Miami likes to run the ball. Cole Kmet in the 12th for Team 11. That's pretty good. Don't want too many pieces of that Bears offense, but there are a couple guys like Cole Kmet, Darnell Mooney, and Dave Montgomery that are the exception that you're going to go after because they're just good fantasy plays. So I like him. Looking at the board, we're not really forced to do anything here. We're just going to continue to take the best player available. We're not looking at the tight end right now. We might get another guy later on towards the end. We are towards the end, but one of our last picks, if Albert O is still there, we might take a shot on him. But we're looking at running backs and wide receivers right now. Alex Madison's still one of the best handcuffs in the league. Jamal Williams, Khalil Herbert, another handcuff guy. He was really actually good. I mentioned Chicago Bears players I really don't want. I think Khalil Herbert might be a better runner than David Montgomery. I think David Montgomery is a little more versatile as far as providing value in the pass game. But Khalil Herbert is, I think he's a really good runner. Kind of gives me those Nick Chubb vibes. He's really good at running the ball. Not the best pass catcher, but he's good at what he does. And I think we saw a little bit of that in Khalil Herbert. So I like him there. Looking at the wide receivers, you could take a shot on Jameson Williams. We know he's going to miss some games. Not too far removed from that ACL injury. But hey, he's going to be a bench guy, so you could take a shot on that. Other receivers we like, Jamison Crowder could be a nice dart throw. They did get rid of some of the guys like Sanders and Beasley in Buffalo. And what happens if Gabe Davis isn't the number 2? We know we've seen him go off in the playoffs, but what if he's not the number 2? We kind of saw that the year before, Gabe Davis go off in the playoffs, and then last year he wasn't that good in the regular season. So maybe he's just a playoff guy. Who knows? But there's a chance in a world where Jamison Crowder's the wide receiver 2 for Josh Allen in Buffalo. So that's a pretty good pick. I think we're going to go with Alex Madison here and back us up to some Dalvin Cook. We've seen Dalvin Cook have plenty of injury history in the past. If that happens to happen earlier this year, which we're definitely not, we're not rooting for. We don't want anyone to get injured, but if it does, we will have Alex Madison, right there as our running back one on our team for the foreseeable future, depending on the significance of that injury if it were to happen. So we got two more players. These guys at this point in the draft, we're pretty much going crazy upside. Guys that could potentially find your starting lineup for half the season if they really hit in the first couple weeks. You're most likely not going to start them even if they go off in week 1 and 2 because you have other guys that you're going to keep in your lineup. But if these guys create a trend and find your way in their starting lineup, these are the guys that could win you leagues at this point in the draft. Most likely not. The guys that are winning you leagues are probably the values you're getting in like round 5, 6, and 7 that should have probably been drafted earlier. But later on in the draft, you might find someone like that. We mentioned we like Khalil Herbert. I don't think he's that type of player, but he is a guy that can be very good. I don't like Chicago's offensive line, so I don't think his ceiling is ever going to be too high. Some wide receivers, I think we're going to go with, I know Corey Davis is there. He's technically the wide receiver 2 or 3 on the New York Jets, but it's kind of a crowded room at this point. But let's take a shot with Jamison Crowder. We already kind of talked about him, so I don't really want to discuss too much that pick. Moving on to the next, who went? Tyler Algier, Derek Carr, Marlon Mack, Darrell Williams. So just throwaway guys, really guys that don't have too big of a shot. Between these guys, I'm not going to go quarterback. If I went quarterback a little bit later and Trey Lance was still here, I'd probably take a shot on him because I'd rather get talent on my roster than some guy who's never going to find my starting roster or become trade value for anything. And Trey Lance, if he really hits off, I could find myself trading Justin Herbert or Trey Lance, one of the two to get better players on my team. But I'm not going to take that shot because I do have Justin Herbert, and I don't plan on having to make any moves at the quarterback position except for his bye week. So we're going to take a shot here on Albert O. We talked about him, or mentioned him multiple times when talking about the tight end position during this video. But he flashed last year a little bit, and that was with like Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater. Russell Wilson's in town, guys. I mean, he's a much better quarterback than those guys, like way better. And Albert O is kind of a freak physical specimen. So there's a chance that he could be a very, very, very good tight end in this league. And just like I talked about the wide receiver or the quarterbacks on my team, if I had two of them, I could do the same thing with tight end. If one of these guys pops off, like Goddard or Albert O, I could trade one of them. If Dallas Goddard was kind of, pacing at the 8th or 9th tight end finish, and Albert O was kind of almost bouncing up above him, I could trade one of those guys, maybe Albert O because he's really rising, and get myself a better wide receiver for this team. So let's take Albert O. For the last pick, we'll go ahead and take our defense. There's going to be a lot of picks that go off the board here. The defense, I should have it pulled up, but really my strategy is to take a defense that has a really good first couple games, like a good slate, first 3, 4, 5 games, someone you can really ride through and have some good finishes right away, and I'm streaming defense the rest of the way. If I happen to need one of those teams or get one of those teams that are a good defense all season long, and I want to play them against really good teams like the Patriots a couple years ago when they were just unbelievable. You were starting them against good teams, good offenses, because they were just creating fantasy points. So if I get one of those guys, for sure. But I don't know much about all these teams as far as their first 4 games. Next video, I'll try to have that up so I can go ahead and talk you through why I'm choosing them. But just looking at this, I'll probably go with the I don't know who the Packers are playing week 1, but their defense is going to be a top 5 defense. Like their backs are just insane, and they didn't really lose too many guys, besides like Zadarius Smith, but they have a lot of good players on their team. And I'm not trying to be a homer here, but depending on their schedule, I think the Green Bay Packers could be a top 5, top 10 at the least defense for the whole year. So Fantasy Pros gave us an 88 out of 100. I think that's pretty good. I wonder, it doesn't really say on here. On the phone, it says like what's weak about your team. But I think our team's pretty good. We got Justin Herbert at quarterback, running backs Joe Mixon, James Conner, wide receivers CeeDee Lamb, DJ Moore, tight end Dallas Goedert, Christian Kirk at the receiving flex, Elijah Mitchell at the regular flex. The Packers, we got Gage, Lazard, McKissick, Madison, Crowder, and Albert So I think we got a pretty good team. A lot of PPR upside here. I was just kind of looking at it. Our running backs are all going to catch the ball, maybe except for Elijah Mitchell. CD Lamb and DJ Moore and Dallas Goedert are going to be, catching a lot of targets for their teams this year. And just everyone else on my team I think has pretty good upside. So I think I put us in a good situation to have a pretty good team this year. If this was our team. So anyway, that was the draft, guys. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you want me to draft from a certain position or a certain format, certain non-PPR, PPR, 10-team, 12-team, whatever you want, what position, 1 through 12. We just did 10 today, so our next one will not be 10. It will be something else. So go ahead and comment below and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of these videos coming out in the next month. It's month of mock drafts on the channel, so go ahead and subscribe. We're not going to want to miss any. And then if you haven't seen the channel before throughout the season, we give you those starts and sits. So if you subscribe now, whenever it's season time, you'll see those videos pop up on your page right when you go to YouTube, and then you can watch that and help you get some fantasy football lineup advice. So go ahead and subscribe. We appreciate it. Drop a comment, and we will see you next time for the next mock draft. Peace.